Check. 1, 2. Ta, ta, ta. Sibilance. Hi, friends. Nice to see you. Nice to be seen. Welcome back to the program. My name is Dean. As always, joining me on this beautiful day, my friend Lochlin Cross, at Lochlin Cross on Twitter, 30-year radio veteran, and now the host of his life, ladies and gentlemen, at Lochlin Cross.
I want to give you some advice quickly before we bring David on, and let's get this out of the way quickly.
Okay.
So you're doing yoga tonight with the with the girlfriend?
Yeah, we're doing yoga this evening.
So whenever I talk to anybody about yoga, because I don't know you, like you and I have never played sports together, but a lot of men are very much wired to be competitive. Like they've got that competitive instinct.
Sure.
And you can, as a beginner, you can hurt yourself if you're trying to do the stuff that other people in the room are doing.
No, I don't have a competitive bone in my body when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go to.
Don't hurt yourself.
No. I'm that guy that's like where they say, take a break whenever you want. It's like sweet relief when I hear those words in a yoga class.
Take some
Don't
water.
Try and do too much. Yeah, I'm going to take water. I'm a little nervous though because last time I went to yoga. By the way, I'm not a flexible man. But the last time I went to yoga, it was like 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, right? All the yoga studios shut down because it's like you can't breathe on each other and all that other stuff. And the gentleman who was doing the class laid on my back at some point to get me to, and I'm a big like don't touch me guy. I got a big personal space thing. Like listen, I'm no issue shaking hands, no issue hugging somebody. But when someone touches me unannounced,
don't.
Or when someone lays on my back,
don't
unannounced, it's a little concerning.
Yeah.
So that was it for me. I was like, I'm done.
I will say this: I have been to hundreds of classes in a studio over the years. I'm doing my yoga teacher training in May 1st to the 15th. I'm gone for 2 weeks. I'm going down to Joshua Tree.
You're a big yogi.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
You're a yogic yogi.
I got into it when I was 40 after I broke my tailbone. I've been doing it for like almost 13 years, probably 13 years now. Yeah, 13 years. And I plan on doing it for the rest of my life. And when I got shit canned from Cruise, I was like, you know what? I've been talking about it. Now is the time. I'm just going to bite the bullet and I'm going to go do it. I'm very excited about it. But anyway, back to my point about the touching thing. I have been to hundreds of classes and I can count on one hand how many times an instructor has even touched me. So that's not a common thing.
All right. I'm just making sure it's not a common thing because I don't want anybody coming around laying hands on me this afternoon going, you need to get lower in the downward dog. You need to get lower. I don't need that.
I think it's a thing of the past.
All right.
I don't think you should worry about it.
Plus, I get so relaxed in those yoga classes that by the time you're done a yoga class, you're like, namaste. Like it means something when you say namaste. You're like, oh, I feel really good. Speaking of peaceful people, today's guest is one of those.
Look at you with the segue.
Do you like that? Yeah.
Yeah. You get segue points.
Thanks, buddy. Between him and Fawcett, easily two of my favorite writers. Hard is like one up, one down. David MOSCROP is an author. He's the author of a book called Too Dumb for Democracy, maybe one of the great reads of our time. He's a writer for the Globe and Mail, Washington Post, Jacobin, TVO, and of course, he's got a Substack, and his Substack is bananas. It's one of those cool Substacks where you're like, I always learn something, and no one's preachy in these articles, in these Substacks. And I want to learn about Substack, but more importantly, I want to have David MOSCROP on because we went at it this week over chocolate bars, and we've got big news to start as well. Please welcome David MOSCROP, ladies and gentlemen, to the program yet again.
My thing with David, just can I interject here quickly?
Well, he hasn't said a word in your interjection.
I want to hear what Lochlin has to say.
Oh, okay, then go ahead, Lochlin.
I appreciate the injection of humor into what he does. Which I think is not easy to do. It's a difficult thing to do as a writer. And not only that, when you're writing, because I know you now and I've read not a lot of your stuff, but a bit of your stuff, I hear you when I'm reading you, I hear you.
Isn't that nice?
It's very nice. That's extreme.
That's
That's extraordinarily nice. Thank you.
It's also difficult to do.
Be
That's
nice.
very
No,
Have a voice.
have a voice.
Have a voice, like have your voice when you write, and that's tough, right, for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Locke brings up a good point.
Yeah.
Some people, like, you get, like, I am not a writer. I blog, but I blog like I talk because I'm a moron.
I hear you when I read your writing, Dean, too. But that's not a compliment.
MOSCROP's laughing at me. He's
It
like,
sounds
"Yeah,
like
I
a guy falling down the stairs.
Yeah, and I take no offense to it because I did not go to school for 33 years like David MOSCROP. I do not have
Just
a
got out.
doctorate. Yeah, did you? You just got out? You done? You done?
Some days I want to go back, and then I run myself into the wall a couple times. I'm like, no.
No,
No,
no.
last-
yeah.
last
Well,
I
what do
wrote
you mean?
was
You've got a
1988.
doctorate. What do you go back for? Like, can you
Yeah,
get?
no kidding.
super
Well, you can go
doctorate?
back for it. They'll take your money.
Well, I know they'll take your money, but like, how much more can you level up past doctor? You got your bachelor's, you got your
You just get a
master's.
different. You get a different
Different
doctorate
one.
if you want.
Get more doctorates.
Yeah.
No, I there are days where I think like, oh, maybe I should go back and do economics just to learn more. I've got nothing left to prove. I don't need credentials. I just
Yeah.
thought it'd be good to learn more. And then I think, you know what? I'll just get an audiobook. It's just it's better.
Some of it'll go
cheaper,
in.
easier.
You know what? I'm just gonna get my first aid certificate. Like, it's stuff like that. You need to kind of fill out the periphery of your skill set, right? You're
Yeah.
academically smart. Go take axe throwing or something instead.
Yeah, you know what I'm doing, and I have been doing for a little while. Me and Megan, rec sports. We're into rec sports because
Yeah.
we're 40, but I am getting into better shape at 40 than I was in my 20s or in parts of my 30s, and rec sports. And I'm joining a second rec sport league because I'm so all in on it.
What do
And
you play? Is it dodgeball? And
so the Monday night league is multi-sport. So yeah, it's like kinball, ringette, floor hockey, futsal, dodgeball, chukball, all kinds of stuff. And then in the summer we do field sports, so
Yeah.
football, some Gaelic football, soccer, ultimate, and then I'm going to joining a soccer league because I really want to sprain my ankle. So, but that's my attempt to be physically and mentally. This goes back to Plato, incidentally. I remember being in undergrad and reading Plato, and that was when my brain
I
turned
heard
on to
Plato.
that. Like plasticine. No, but
Yeah.
the Plato with the T. And Plato argued basically healthy body, healthy mind. He was the OG healthy body, healthy mind guy. And
Plato was healthy body, healthy mind, and that bred into Stoicism, Epicureanism, where they're like, hey, you can never stop challenging yourself mentally and physically you challenge yourself, you'll be better mentally. To your point, yes, correct.
And I think that's so powerful and important. And so I'm really embracing that, post 40, both strategically for my for my aging body, which incidentally yoga can't beat yoga. And for my brain. So yeah, that's what I do. But axe throwing is not a bad idea either. And it's a good way to relieve stress from spending your days writing about politics, which is inherently infuriating.
Oh, dude.
You need a relief, right?
Yeah.
Well, I avoid the axe throwing because it involves drinking. And I just,
That's always a good combo. You joined pickleball, though, dude. Locke starts his pickleball career on Friday. Him and the wife joined pickleball, which is like, I used to think it was one of those sports that you took up when you gave up, but then I saw this like it's pickleball league, televised pickleball league on the OLN network, and then I read that the world championship pickleball guy makes $4 million a year, and the TV rights are worth $50 to $60 million a year.
It's a big deal right now.
World pick, and then I started laughing. I'm like, well, maybe I should get into a pickleball league. And then I started reading about cornholing, and I listen, not like that. Cornhole, it's like one of the biggest up and coming games. It's like beanbags into this thing. I know it's a fun word to say, everybody. It's super cool. You know what the TV rights for cornhole are? $250 million a year. The world's best cornholer. I can't get you not. Some dude who makes like $10 million a year. And he's also one of the best Frisbee golf guys in the world. So to your point, you might have a career in activities. You don't know how much money you could make, MOSCROP.
I think that's great. I love one of the great things I love about the advance of technology and the democratization of media spaces is that we can now indulge our very varied many interests, right? Now there's a whole pickleball niche.
Yeah.
and and it's just there, and it's cool, and you can own it. And I think that's fantastic. I think one of the great developments in contemporary society is that we have normalized a lot of niche interests, and people are cool with it by and large, and it's possible for you to indulge it.
Mm.
And when I lived in South Korea, there was a television channel dedicated to showing video games like esports, and this was in early, like 2008, 2010. Now it's very normal, right, to go Twitch streams and so on, but then it was sort of new and atypical, and you could just go watch some guy play StarCraft for hours if you wanted to. And like, I don't know, that's not, watching that isn't my thing, but it's cool that other people love and have access to it, and I think that's great.
I always find it funny when they break down the ratings and the people watching. Like, and they'll show you on the sports network who's higher, and like, cornhole is like 5
Huge
spots higher than hockey.
The NHL,
Like,
yeah, it is. Cornhole way bigger, pickleball way bigger. The outdoor hunting shows, they rate way higher than any NHL show. You're just watching some dude sitting in a stand in a tree for like 2 hours, going, wonder if he's going to get it. Wonder if he's going to get it. But to your point, yeah, there's niche stuff for everybody. And I kind of dig it. Like, I like the fact that everybody gets to. And you know what I like about you doing that? It's like, it's time to learn how to play again. Like you laughing through the entire political mess and the ecosystem that we see. And you said something last week. You're like, maybe we should just blow up all politics. Maybe we should just do that. And as a political writer, I thought that was fascinating, right? Because you generally get paid to talk about the minutia involved in politics, and to watch you take long breaks on Twitter and watch you legitimately go, hey, listen, I'm having a hard time processing where we're at because I don't understand this. It was almost like it gave me license to get out of the game, to stop talking about it like everybody's talking about politics now, like it's a way to hang some kind of culture collar on people, like it's just a Dunkaroo fest. On and on and on, and none of it's positive, right? None of it is where we want to be. To Lochlin's point last week, he was talking about how sick he was of it, and we're reaching out, having conversations with people on different sides of the spectrum to try and understand why people believe what they believe, but I don't even know if that even matters anymore.
Well, and it's
like,
driving you crazy.
Bother trying to figure it out.
It drives you crazy. Yeah, and it's like boxing.
Crazy. Yeah,
it's like boxing. And I get up, I put on the gloves, I go, I swing, and I tucker myself out, and then I need a break between rounds. And there's two bits of that cycle. There's the daily bit and then the semi-regular bit. So the semi-regular bit is after a few weeks or a few months of this, I need to take some time away from it. The daily bit is in the morning, I get up and I'm ready to go log on and be like, let's do this, And then at night, if I'm logged on, I'm like, I just want to have fun and talk about nonsense for a little while now, because I'm now easing into bedtime. So I'm like, the fighting hours are kind of like 9 till 4 or 5 or 6 maybe, and then at night it's like after hours we're just chilling. But then in the long run I need breaks too, because it's a pugnacious space and always will be, and some of that is healthy and some of it's not, but it does take a toll, in part because there are bad faith interlocutors and good faith interlocutors, but you end up quarreling with both. And the bad faith folks, that's easy. It's just like, fuck these guys. But there's people I like that I get into it with, and that's kind of tough.
Like who? Hang on. Like who? Who do you? Because I'm watching the disintegration of some relationships, right, that you have, and people on both sides of that extreme equation seem to have this understanding or this impetus for interacting with people that says, well, if you interacted with that person, or you're having a conversation with that person, or if you have an opinion, and I notice it around Trudeau a little bit more than ever, if you have an opinion that you don't like something this government is doing, you're on the wrong team. And you can't even have a legitimate conversation about, the Prime Minister's office communications. You can't have a legitimate conversation about their failings without people saying, well, using the whole Nazi dinner party thing. Well, hey, listen, if you don't agree with that, that means you're the Nazi at the dinner party. It's like this whole understanding that I used to have of being able to have normal conversations. And I come from this traditional media gambit, as does Lochlin Cross, where you could literally turn your commercials on and you'd have an NDP commercial, you'd have a PC commercial, you'd have a liberal commercial, and they would all have competing messaging, but it was okay to do that. We can't do that now. We can't have conversations with people unless those conversations are predicated by, well, if you have that conversation with him, you're out of the club.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you said that, because in the last couple of years, but particularly in the last 6 months or so, I have drawn a hard line on not taking that bullshit anymore. That I'm going to talk to whomever I please, whenever I please, however I please. And if people don't like it, they can just kiss the roundest part of my ass. Like, I don't care. And I'm not going to hide the fact that I want to talk to all kinds of different people, that I like all kinds of different people. I don't care. You know, I talked to, for instance, Stephen Taylor, who is an arch conservative, who, you know, is bound up in the Harper verse and the Polyev verse, and I hope his side loses. I hope they lose a lot. But I like Stephen Taylor. I like talking to him and shooting the shit with him about things. And I was on a Zoom happy hour thing with him that Mike Lake hosts, the MP out of Edmonton, Wetaskiwin, and I had a blast talking to them. You know what? I also like Michelle Rempel Gardner. I like shooting the shit with her too. And I disagree with her on a lot of things. I agree with her on some stuff too. And if people don't like it, if they want me to pass some purity tests to be able to exist in the world, then I'm out, because you know what? I like the people I like the way I like them for the reasons I like them. And I'm just not going to apologize for that anymore.
You don't have to agree. I loved the boxing analogy, MOSCROP. Oh yes. That's kind of where Dean and I are at, and that's where our conversation has shifted. You know, we don't have to agree with you. We don't even have to like what you say, but we
can like you. We can respect you.
We can still have a reasonable conversation and maybe get some different perspective, right? That's awesome. So loved the boxing analogy, loved that. And I love the idea that you actually take some time to, to jump into the silly waters, and we'll get into the chocolate bar conversation. But where does OJ fit into? Is that boxing, or is that late night
murder? That would be murder.
Breaking news, by the way.
Yeah, I was joking on Twitter that I hope cancer is acquitted.
OJ died last night. Died this morning, early this morning. 76 years old.
Yeah.
There you go. OJ Simpson dead. Family says, and everybody remembers the this old trip. I remember where I was. I was at a white spot in Vancouver watching it on television. OJ's big ride with Al Cowlings. Big news though that he died. And your tweet, you hope cancer get acquitted. How's it going over out there?
I think I haven't checked in. I think it's okay. Can you just pull up that chase photo again for a sec?
Here you go. Yeah.
I don't love his odds there. Looking back on it, it looks like he's outnumbered.
Can I get a Bronco now?
I remember that because I remember being at home and watching it on TV, and my mom was there, and I didn't entirely understand it until later. But for me, that was also when I was coming of age politically a little bit. I was sort of becoming conscious of politics and current affairs. It was also when I discovered kind of Norm Macdonald, who was a huge influence on me. And I just think one of the funniest people who's ever existed. Brilliant. And so much, Lochlin mentioned humor earlier. So much of that formation for me was watching people like Norm Macdonald, and Norm Macdonald in particular, just like beat the piss out of OJ week after week after week, and take swings at power. Part of the thing that I loved about people like Letterman and Norm Macdonald was that they punched up as a rule, and they were not afraid to take big swings at powerful people and to stay on it, and that's informed both my humor, I should say, my sense of humor, but also my politics, right, of punching up and not punching down. And so the OJ thing is interesting because for me it just brings back a lot of formative memories of that, and I'm all for wishing ill on terrible people as long as you're punching up. So I'm not sad to see him go, and I hope it brings some peace to the families of the people he.
Well put. I miss. What did you think of? Because Norm doesn't get a lot of credit for his weekend update on SNL.
I know, and it was the best thing he did.
Yes. Thank you.
It was the best. So there's great YouTube supercuts of Norm Macdonald taking a run at OJ, but I remember one of the funniest bits was when OJ was acquitted. His opening bit on was, well, so murder is legal in the state of California, and I just remember thinking, it's funny, it's subversive, and he did some of his best work on Weekend Update, and it was really sad that he doesn't get enough respect for that.
I think the phone rang so much that Lauren just finally said, I can't. Right?
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Like from all the old wives' tales or urban legends about Norm Macdonald getting put out of Saturday Night Live. I believe OJ was the impetus. At some point, Lorne Michaels went up to Norm Macdonald. He's like, dude, you got to chill out on the OJ stuff. He's like, I will never do that. And then Lorne Michaels, well, then you got to go. And he's like, see you later. And somehow brought him back as Turd Ferguson about 14 times after that.
Okay,
too.
so it's funny, which was maybe the best performance. I don't know, but so
Turd Ferguson, I
love Turd Ferguson. The whole Celebrity Jeopardy bit was great, but that particular one. But so they brought him back not super long after they'd fired him, and I remember in his monologue he said, I'm thinking about this because I go from being so unfunny that I'm not allowed in the building to so funny that I'm hosting. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. And I thought about it and I realized I didn't get funnier. The show got worse.
So he's just taking shots at the show. I remember
from
that.
his monologue, and it's like, I love that. I respect that. And I to this day, it's
Shane
a healthy discussion of authority.
Did a similar thing because he got fired before he even went on the show. And then they brought him back, and his monologue is very awkward. I don't know if you watched. Do you know who Shane Gillis is, David?
No.
Yeah, he's got a Netflix special. He was a writer for Saturday Night Live, and he got fired before he actually. I think it was like he had just been hired, and they uncovered some stuff he said about Asian people in a podcast. It's called The Secret Podcast with Shane and Jay. And so
obviously not super secret.
No, not secret
not
enough.
Super. No.
His
line, his funny line on that, Dean, sorry to interrupt, was
no, go ahead.
He said he says when you upset the theater group and you get something they want, they're going to find anything to take it away from you. So he was taking a shot at the people on SNL at the time, but they brought him back. And while he was on his monologue, there was a lot about, I shouldn't be here. I don't know what's going on. And then he proceeded to go on the show, and he was brilliant. He was really good in the skits as well.
Might be one of the best Saturday Night Live episodes I've seen in the last 2 years, actually. And it was that revenge play,
his
where
monologue
certain people decided. No, it wasn't awesome, but the skits were amazing. Where certain people, and we see it every day, right? Where certain people will tell you that you're not the flavor that they want anymore, or maybe you said something they didn't like. Like, we live in that society now. We know how unprogressive progressives can be in regard to that, where they say, hey, you said something we didn't like, whether it was right or wrong. And we live in that world, right? And, we were talking about kissing the roundest part of your ass when it comes to that perspective. And a great example in my mind, watching people, this Alex Jones, Pierre Poilievre stuff is fascinating to me in that regard, because we've moved past cancellation or deciding who's morally acceptable to be able to talk to people, talk about people. But there are immutable assholes in this world, right? Yeah. And when Alex Jones says, Pierre Poilievre's my guy, I think that says a lot, right? I think it says enough about us as people, and the fact that nobody said anything about it. There are endorsements you probably don't want as a politician. That would be probably number one in my books.
That's on the list.
That would be way up on mine. That would be way up on mine. But that's interesting because I draw some hard lines. There are some people I'm not going to fraternize with, talk to, or support because their politics are so heinous and so toxic that it's beyond a moral line for me. But what thinking about all this that raises for me is the complexity of our own lives, because people get pissy on the internet if you're talking to someone that they have a beef with because they don't like what they've said or they stand for in this issue or that issue. But in our own lives, things are way more complicated, right? Like our own family, our own friends, the people we went to school with, the people we play sports with, they're complicated people. They have layers to them. And no one's going around saying, well, you can't talk to your uncle because he said X, Y, or Z. I'm like, well, of course, no one's going to begrudge you talking to your uncle. I think we should extend that grace to people. It's just that, the internet surfaces all that and makes easy targets out of people, which is irritating. But the Alex Jones thing really stood out to me because, the Polyev camp, they distance themselves from it. They say, we don't know, we don't recognize the guy in particular or something like that. We don't. They kind of sloughed it off. Pierre didn't say anything.
He did say something about it, didn't he?
Yeah, well, there was some kind of statement basically like, we don't something the individual in question, right? They didn't even name him. I can't remember the exact wording, but I do think at some point you can be judged by those who support you, right? I mean, if everybody thinks, if the loons think that you're their guy, that probably says something about you.
Yeah. He was right about the frogs.
No, he wasn't right about the frogs. He was not. No, he wasn't. He's not right about anything. He's never been. No, he's not right about anything. He's just insane. And he endorsed it again. No, you didn't. You're making it up now. Yeah. Well, you might have found it actually on Facebook. That means
you can find whatever you want on Facebook.
To that point, I think he's working for Trudeau. I mean, I can't imagine a worse endorsement. Like, it's like having Charles Manson endorse your party, right? He's the Charles Manson of the spoken word. And you look at what he did. So Trudeau, obviously, this is what the Liberal Party does. They're like, hey, that guy likes you. That means you're a terrible person. But in this case, he's actually right. Like if this.
Look at that! I mean? Finally, just right.
Yeah. Like I know the collaring job that the progressive left likes to hang on anybody that doesn't agree with what they say. But in this case, David, when Alex Jones says Pierre Poilievre's your guy, Trudeau's 100% right. That is not the guy you want supporting you and your cause in any capacity at all. No. I know anybody can run into a fastball at any point in time, which he did there. But my God. Like if that, and I read the polls this morning, he's up 20 points again. I'm like, this is the craziest world I've ever lived in.
It's like what folks used to say about the Republicans in the U.S. This is by way of an analogy. It was like, well, you might say not every Republican is a racist, but the racists are all Republicans, right? And it does start to tinge you by association. Like if people feel comfortable. If extremists feel comfortable in your space, then your space is welcoming of extremists. And that's a problem, right? But this goes back to the question of who we get to talk to and be friends with. I'm friends with a lot of people on the right. I'm not going to be friends with conspiracy theorist nut jobs, or I'm not going to be friends with Nazis. So you've got to draw a hard line because that's something outside the boundaries of any kind of acceptable.
What about some of the softer conspiracy theories? David,
it depends. I mean, if they're not hurting people. Oh yeah, no. This is like frog shit. I don't care about frog shit. The border is probably like chemtrails. Chemtrails is probably
okay.
I could live with a chemtrails person.
Flat earther.
Whatever.
Could you be friends with a flat earther?
That's like vintage kooky. Like that's
just a fun guy to have around.
It doesn't hurt anybody, right? No. It doesn't hurt anybody.
No.
I do go down the occasional rabbit hole though, right? And I don't want to lose you as a friend.
No, you won't. But it's funny is a couple years ago, if you had said, "Oh, the NSA is spying on everyone through a massive surveillance network," put them in like tinfoil hat stuff. Can't be friends. Turns out it's fucking true. Right?
That's the world we live in, though.
And then aliens, right? It's like, it couldn't be possibly aliens. And then it was like, oh, maybe aliens are a thing. And it's like page 9. And so, in recent years, I've sort of shifted the boundary of what I consider to be kooky because a lot of things are true.
Well, that's the problem that I'm having with guys like Alex Jones, right? Like, I know he's a hateful dick, so let's put that aside. But I have a hard time talking about conspiracy theories that I believe in because the goalposts of what was true or what we used to mock as a conspiracy theory, where you're like,
All of
oh
a sudden,
sure,
you're swimming
there's
around in
there's
those waters.
yeah, like Jeffrey Epstein's really, and you're like, oh my god, it's
Yeah, I
true,
mean,
right?
Sandy Hook is an easy one, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, Sandy Hook is an easy one. It was an absolute awful tragedy, in which case a psychopath killed children.
Yeah,
Right? Like if we can't all, you know, get together on that one, we got a serious problem, right? Like that's got to be a hard line for civilized conversation.
Mhm.
But Epstein, the NSA, I mean, maybe
Well, the Epstein
aliens,
stuff, Alex Jones was way ahead of the curve on that one, wasn't he? Like
that seems to me
I'm
like
not
a clock that's a broken clock that happens to
the
strike
fastball
noon.
analogy.
That's
You know,
that.
right?
Okay,
Fastball
yeah,
at any
yeah.
time,
That
yeah.
and the frogs.
Yeah, not the frogs, dude. Get away from the fucking frogs. But we see it manifest itself during the eclipse too, like the conspiracy stuff. And I loved every one of them, by the
Chemtrails.
way. Yeah, well, chemtrails was another one. They
For
said
sure.
that this was the chance for the satanic magic cabal to shoot some rockets at the moon. That was one of my favorites.
Did they hit it?
Unknown. It's too far away. I haven't seen. Did they
Still
hit it?
making its way.
Still, it's on the way. It's an EV rocket, so it's taking.
It's doing it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wanna hit the back end of it, so it's
yeah,
got to
'cause-
catch the momentum of.
Yeah.
That's right. It's got to get the trajectory.
Yeah, but my favorite, and I wanted to play this one for you. This made me laugh because this is like a take on it, but I think this guy's onto something. Let's watch it together.
Here's what you need to know about the total solar eclipse. Now, a lot of people know that the total solar eclipse will be traveling on a path from frickin' southish to northish over the United States of America. And many people believe that this eclipse pathway is actually opening up a portal for humans to receive downloads of information and connect deeper with the universe. Now, what's crazy is if you take one letter from every city that the eclipse is traveling over, you can rearrange it to get a message directly from the universe. And what's even weirder, dude, is if you trace the past 3 eclipse pathways, they form a perfect frickin' triangle over the United States of America. And if you look at this circle here, that's the true middle of this triangle. It's an untouched piece of land that humans have never made contact with. And what's crazy is if you zoom in on this true middle of the triangle that the eclipse pathways create, you'll find this is the location where P. Diddy is hiding.
Kind of brilliant, though.
Is that one
Takes
okay?
you on a journey. It's like national treasure.
But is that one okay? Because
Yeah, that
someone
one's
actually
fine.
sent that to me, and they're like, I can't tell if this is a joke or not. I go, well, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, no, but this is the next thing, is that the boundary between satire and reality is increasingly fuzzy,
Yeah.
which is not
Yeah.
great. It's
Which is-
you know, now we got AI to deal with, and I saw someone posting the other day a screenshot from Facebook being like, "Oh, the boomers are just going to believe every AI thing on Facebook from now on, and
Yeah.
we are just so hooped."
Because the boomers are going to go, wait a second. Why is the Pope in a video on Pornhub?
Like, honest to God, we're just not prepared for
Yeah.
what AI.
AI
is going
scare
to
you?
do.
Does AI scare you a little bit?
Yeah, it
You use
does.
it? You use ChatGPT?
I've
use it
never
all
in
the
my
time.
life. I mean, I use AI in the sense that I'm sure something I do is enhanced by AI, like the Gmail. When Gmail finishes your sentences, I'm assuming that's AI
Yeah. it is
enhanced. So
now.
I guess
Yeah.
I must. But I've never used ChatGPT or any of the AI tools. I worry about it in a couple of ways. I worry about it displacing workers, and I
Mhm.
don't, think we're prepared for that. And I worry about the mis and disinformation capacities for it, like everybody
Mhm.
sort of does,
Mhm.
because we're just not prepared for that. And of course, abuses, like non-consensual sexual images and deep faking porn and things like that. That's going to be used as a tool by creeps to exploit people. So, and again, the law is so slow, and
Yeah.
our institutions are so slow to catch up to this. That's not looking.
Do we have an
good.
update on the Taylor Swift stuff? Because that guy was from Ontario.
Yeah, Toronto guy. He did the Taylor Swift deep fake porn, and yeah, she actually had a law drafted. Maybe the only pop star in the world that can have laws drafted.
Don't mess with Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and she's
a
got Congress
gangster.
on it. And then I don't know if you saw this the other day. AOC had one come out too. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Say what you like about her, but again, and she said it was unnerving to see it.
Yeah.
And it's got to be right. Like for
Yeah.
guys like us, like it would be weird waking up one day to see someone who wanted to sewer our reputation with us in a video.
Yeah.
Like an adult pornography video. All of us would shit our pants.
Yeah,
Right?
of course we would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we got to get on it. And I think, incidentally, I think we're moving slightly faster on that than I would have expected, and which is a good sign because we're often really slow on harassment. The question will be
I have a
though,
theory on that.
once is it has to do with frogs?
Probably.
No.
Sorry, go ahead.
Finish, David. I will jump in with my theory on a.
Well, I was just thinking that my concern is we'll get the laws, but will they be properly enforced? Because a lot of times you have a law in the books, and then someone is dealing with harassment and is dealing with someone deep faking their stuff or whatever, or stalking them or whatever it might be, and it's often typically women who have to deal with this, and then police and the courts. Right, they're just not there to enforce the law. So I am worried about the enforcement side of it, especially in the digital age where you could be hiding anywhere in the world behind a computer, right?
My theory behind the reason why they've kind of stepped on the gas with this kind of thing and has to do with, what was it, about a year ago, Dean, when all those guys signed the paper, and anybody working in AI, they were going to take a break or something, but they all got together.
Yeah, they all said, hey, this is way too fast. All the big tech guys got together and said, we're going to sign an agreement that says we're going to slow things down until we know how this is going to affect the world, et cetera, et cetera. And as soon as
it was about a year ago.
Yeah, but
I
think like Google and all those other companies just insulated their research and started really going for it, so one guy could get ahead of the other guy, other guy. So it wasn't like
work
stopped. No, they didn't.
But I think somebody saw something. They were in a room and they were like, hey, look what we've done. And they invited all their buddies over, and they all flew, and they went out to the strip club, and then the next morning got on buses and went and checked it out, and it scared them. Somebody did something that scared somebody. And that's why I think that conversation started. And that's why I think there's been the conversation behind the scenes to get organized on possibly controlling this. That's my theory. And again, it is a little conspiracy.
Yeah, that's the kind I can kind of broadly think of as plausible. Because I think even if it's not directly the case that they literally sat down and saw something, that it is true that at the very least they detected a trend that scared them, right? When you have an expert coming out and saying, oh, there's a 10% that AI wipes out humanity in 10 years or 20 years or whatever it was, because some guy did, I can't remember the details. That seems pretty high. 10% is pretty high. Like if I said, there's a 10% chance you're going to crash your car on the way to the grocery store, you would think twice about getting in your car. Right.
Yeah.
So
if I told you there's a 10% chance you could win Lotto 649 or Lotto Max, you'd go buy a ticket.
I'd buy a couple. Right. Yeah. And that 10% is a pretty high chance. Right. Yeah. When you're like, oh, 10%. But then I said, okay, there's a 10% chance you get in a car accident. All of a sudden you're like, that seems pretty high.
I'll take the bus.
Yeah. It's exactly. That's a high percentage chance for a significant event. So I do think, and I worry that what's going to happen is the market's going to rush. And it's going to go where it goes, and we're going to be really slow to restrain it. And by the time it gets to somewhere where we really don't want it to be, like AI police robots, which are in development, it's going to be too late because we're there, right? And then it's and I'm not going full blown Skynet here, but it's in the.
Well, you can't because you don't like conspiracy theories. It's like, and the funny part is that like all the people like us that are like terra firma. Or at least you're terra firma and you're starting to believe some of these conspiracy theories about, eye in the sky, robot brain controlling everything. It's legitimately here, right? So like you almost have to, you talk about moving the goalposts of what you can say or what you want to talk about in terms of, and not giving a shit is one thing, but like everybody like us that it's like, I got to see receipts, proof. I want to see how this whole thing works. As you see this kind of stuff develop, you're like, well, now I need a new game plan when it comes to talking about this stuff, because it's here in the conspiracy theories that we talk about, machine learning taking over. If you've watched iRobot, I used to think iRobot was the stupidest movie of all time. Just a really big Bridget Moynihan fan. And now every time I see something on AI, or every time I see, something on Grok, or you see Boston Dynamics put out a robot that can do somersaults, or you see, anything like that. You see BMW working on this new robot. I don't know if you saw it. This robot that you can take with you, talk to you. It can empty the dishwasher for you. It can make you dinner. It's like, it's truly frigging amazing. But it also is like, I didn't believe any of that shit. And all those conspiracy guys did way back in the day. And now it's here. Now it's like, how do you not pay attention to that? Or at some point go, maybe we're wrong. And maybe we should be a little more open-minded to the possibilities. Because it's like anything else, right? AI, new tech. The people that invent these things, they invent them because they want to see it work. It's like the atomic bomb. And then you go, well, what have we done? Like, what have we done to the rest of the world with what we've decided to do? Because those
you spend a whole bunch of energy trying to find ways to placate yourself. And
and you can imagine all kinds of past technologies that would have been thought of in some quarters as conspiracy theory nutter stuff, like a nuclear weapon or a plane. I'm sure there are people like, oh yeah, the government is secretly working on a giant weapon that would destroy cities, and they're like, okay, Bill, put down the Jamesons, right?
Yeah.
And then
I'll take it one step further. I think what scared him was, I think all those scientists, AI guys, got in a room and somebody admitted we can't turn it off. I'll just cut the power. No, we tried that. I think we're already there.
That's the Skynet conspiracy.
I know it's the Skynet thing, and I realize
be careful, because David won't be your friend.
Alien
no,
movie.
I will, because I mean, I don't like. I could imagine a world. Here's the thing: I can't imagine a world in which chemtrails are a thing. I can't imagine a world in which the Sandy Hook folks were crisis actors. I can't imagine that world, because that is verifiably, demonstrably untrue.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's demonstrably untrue.
Yeah.
What I can imagine a world in which an AI technology gets out of our hands. I mean, I can. I'm not saying it's there. I'm not saying it's happened. I'm just saying I can plausibly imagine that world, and I think that folks, can get there. And even working backwards from there, we get to the anxieties of the power of AI, which currently isn't that AI on its own is a problem. It's that the humans controlling it have a dangerous tool that they can do dangerous things with. And that the AI threat isn't that AI will go rogue. It's that people will do bad things with it, which they absolutely will. That is rule one. It's like, you invent a technology, someone is going to do something bad with it. You invent a hammer, and someone is going to bash someone in the head with it, right? You invent nuclear power, and someone's going to make a bomb out of it. So it's law one of humankind. You discover fire, and someone's going to eventually burn down a building with it for the insurance money. Like, everything we do eventually gets misused.
Yeah, it's either we're either going to do something
the
harmful.
Insurance money is a good one. I bet the Neanderthals, when they're like, hey, this makes meat really tasty, weren't thinking of how they could screw over Wawanisa.
Yeah. It's either that, or we find a way to have sex with it. Can you imagine a world, David, without the Big Turk?
I don't want to. What's the point of imagining? What's the point of imagining that?
I was really upset with you this week because you tweeted the most blasphemous shit. You talk about conspiracy theorists. Your love for Big Turks.
Yeah, it's my favorite chocolate bar. And here's the thing: I'm not saying it's the best chocolate bar in the world. I'm not saying everybody
kind of what you said.
Love it. I was trying to be deliberately provocative. Low stakes.
Oh, were you gaslighting me? Is that right?
No, I would never. I love love the Big Turk chocolate bar. It is the perfect combination of a thin layer of chocolate and a good candy gooey layer.
Yeah.
And I don't even like the real Big Turk with, like, if you were to take real Turkish Delight and wrap it in chocolate, I'm like, no, I don't like that. Although I like Turkish Delight. I want the janky, mass-produced, shitty chocolate, shitty Turkish Delight candy. And it was, as a kid, it was my favorite chocolate bar. So this goes back to when I was like 6 years old.
Okay, but I get that. But were you introduced to chocolate bars by a senior citizen? That's the first question I would ask.
I might have been.
Okay.
I don't actually remember. So my mom, I was raised by a single mom. And so when she would go to work, I would often go to my grandparents' house. So we may have the origin story here. Because I'd walk
also
down
like
to the
Werther's.
Beckers.
Yeah, and cherry
I do
blossoms.
like Werther's. No, I don't like cherry blossoms, actually.
That's a lie. You're just saying that to get out of the
No, I
Big
fucking
Turk hell.
hate Megan
you
loves
really?
cherry blossoms. I fucking hate cherry blossoms.
They're the fucking worst candy of all time.
I don't understand. I don't understand how they still exist. But I would, I was funny. I tweeted about this a couple years ago, and I got a big response. Was, remember back in the day where your parents or your grandparents would give you a note, be like, "Oh, this is my grandson Dave. I'm sending him to Becker's here to get a pack of smokes. Please give him the smokes."
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Okay," and they would give the 6-year-old like a pack of Players.
Yeah.
And then I would keep the change and buy myself a Turkish Delight or something like that. Like, this is at 6 years old. I'd walk down to the Beckers, grab my grandparents some smokes and a Turkish Delight. Imagine, like, now if some kid walked in, they won't let kids mail shit. You can't, like, as a kid, you're not like allowed to mail a package. You can't like walk into the liquor store and be like, I need a 500 ml bottle of Jack.
This is so funny because it's so true.
Like, did your grandparents say this was okay? Like, yeah, okay then.
Yeah. Here's a note. Here's a note from my.
And it wasn't that long ago, right? I would have been doing this in the early 90s or late 80s.
Yeah, dude. Same thing. I remember my dad would say to me, you'd get the call like at like 6, 7 o'clock at night. My dad would call down the stairs because he'd have a couple drinks. He'd run out of rye. He'd send my brother and I to the corner store. The corner store where we lived had a liquor store next to it, right? So he'd give us a 20. You'd go get him a pack of smokes. That was $2. A bottle of rye was, and notes for both. Please give my son a 2.6 of Canadian Club. And I'm like, 7 years old, guys.
What can I do? The kid's got a note. He's got a note. I got no choice. He's got a note.
It was Saskatchewan too, so they would just take your word for it sometimes, right?
I had a buddy one time, when we were in high school, I started getting served at the LCBO beer store in about grade 11. I had a beard. And I had a buddy, though, whose strategy was, it's brilliant. He would walk into the liquor store with his health card that had his actual birth date on it that clearly showed he was under 19, and he would give it to them. And his hope was that they wouldn't look.
Are you serious?
Because they can't confiscate your health card. They can't take it. It's not a fake ID. It's his. It's his health card. They can't take it.
Yeah.
So he's just like, it's a numbers game.
Yeah. He played the odds.
I want to know the numbers. Like,
and
how
it
well
works sometimes, like, I don't like 1 in 10
did.
times the people will be like, oh, good, you're good. They don't actually look at it. But I'm like, this is fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Dude, fake ID, it only needs to be fake ID if you can't, play the odds as you pointed out. That's all I did. I remember I used to go across the border with my driver's license or my health card. Remember that? Remember you
you didn't have passport?
Yeah. In fact, I got across the border once with my student ID card. No word of a lie. This is back in the 90s, late 90s, late
Thanks,
80s, early
9/11.
90s. Yeah. Thanks, Obama or Osama. Thanks a lot.
I grew up in BC. It was 18 was the drinking age.
Yeah.
And so before we turned 18, we'd go to the States to buy booze.
Yeah.
And they'd give it to us, no problem. And it was 21 down there.
Yeah.
So we that's how we negotiated drinking when we were kids, like grade 11, grade 10, grade 11.
It's
grade
nice
9,
that we figured out
grade
how
8.
it is you came to love Big Turks, though. That was the only thing I really wanted to figure out because it bothered me on Twitter the other
That's
day.
my origin story.
I know it is.
What about an Eat More? Where do you stand on an Eat More?
When I was in high school, I loved Eat Mores,
I'm a
and
big fan.
I still wouldn't mind an Eat More. It's different, right? It's chewy. It's this toffee thing. It's peanuts. I think are kind of an overrated nut, but it's an interesting combination. You know what the worst chocolate bar is? No joke. That people love and I don't understand it. Mars bars.
Mars
Oh,
bars?
I can do
Are
a
you
Mars
kidding
bar.
me? Mars bars are okay. Big
They're
Turks.
terrible.
Big Turks eat more Mars bars.
Mars
I
bar.
don't know
What's
anybody
the
that would
point of
take
Mars
a
bar?
Mars bar or a Big Turk or an Eat More over Mars bar. Nobody. Yeah, I know you
I'd take
would.
and eat more over a Mars bar.
We've already discovered
Or
why.
Snickers. Snickers, I think, is the platonic idea of a chocolate bar. It's the perfect chocolate bar. It's perfectly designed and balanced. And Mars is kind of like a shittier version of a Snickers.
Yeah, it's like an empty Snickers. Like I
Yeah.
get that. I get what you're
It's
saying.
nuts up in there.
Where are you up with where are you at with Kit Kats? Where are you at with Kit Kats?
Oh, I love Kit Kats. I
love
love
it.
Kit Kats.
I like
And
the
I
Kit
would,
Kat, too.
when I've been to Japan a couple of times, and I just come back with a suitcase full of exotic Kit Kats because they've got all
Matcha
kinds-
Kit Kat, orange
No, they-
Kit Kat,
butter Kit
Excuse
Kats.
me, butter Kit Kat? Are you kidding me right now?
Butter Kit Kats, very good.
Really, I had no
They
idea.
also
You
have
get the matcha,
crazy
you get the-
Doritos over there too. Like they'll have like a wasabi Dorito. Like yeah,
It's brilliant.
yeah.
That's
They
a
got
real.
all
That's a
this-
real country.
Where are you at
That's a
with
real country.
Yeah, right. Where are you at with O'Henry's? No bueno.
Oh no, I like O'Henry's, especially if they're cold. I like to put them in the fridge or the freezer and eat them cold.
Mm. That's not many people do that anymore. That's what I do with score bars.
Yeah.
I
I
Score
love
bars to
score
be cool.
bars.
Yeah, score bar. You can't not put a score bar in the freezer. Like if
Score
you're going
bar
to eat a
might
score
be
bar
my
room
favorite.
temperature, you're
Yeah.
an idiot. You can't do
Score is
that.
close. You know what? Now I think about score is.
Right up there.
Yeah.
It's the
Really?
simplicity.
Where are you at with Caramel? That's ranked the #1 chocolate bar in this country. Caramel, and
Is it
it's
really?
like bottom feeder for me. Yeah, absolutely. Caramel.
I like a
And then
caramel.
Jersey Milk, strangely enough, Jersey Milk made the cut,
It's
which
kinda
I
like
thought was
mid.
ridiculous. I don't know
Caramel's
anybody
fine.
that stops and
I
gets a
don't
Jersey
dislike
Milk.
caramels, but they're kind of mid, right?
Yeah, they are very mid, aren't they? Fascinating. Anyway, I'm just happy to know why you like Big Turks. I'm not going to mock you now because I know it comes with emotional.
Caramels are kind of
memories.
like Paul Rudd. Like no one's gonna get really angry about it, but like
Yeah.
yeah,
you're not giving
it's kinda
Caramels
there.
an Oscar.
yeah, yeah.
And maybe he has one. I don't know, but he probably if he does, he
I think
shouldn't.
he
but
does, dude.
I don't
don't
know
know.
why that works, David. That
He's a fucking doctor. That's why it works. He just it comes
Yeah,
to him
trust
and he
me,
has
I-
the information. Trust me. He's
That's
a
awesome.
doctor.
Yeah, the challenge here is really just controlling the traffic flow. This is it's funny because this is a thing I realized when I was young was that my brain worked a lot faster than my mouth and my and so things would just sort of tumble out and I would have a hard time catching myself before I said things.
Mhm.
And 90% of the time that was fine and 50% of the time it was actually a huge asset, but 10% of the time it got me into a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
And one of my first political
sounds like
memories
my life.
it's a problem, right? And one of my first political memories was when I was in grade 5, I think, and it was during the Quebec referendum in 95. And my teacher was French Canadian. I can't remember if she was Quebecoise or Franco-Ontarian. I think she was Quebecoise. And we had this big map up on our wall in the portable, and she was taking it down. It was a map of Canada, and she was taking it down province by province. And she took Quebec down, and I said something like, "You would." And I was like, I don't know, how old are you in grade 5? 10 or something like that?
Yeah,
Or
11.
9 or
You're
10.
11. Yeah.
And so I'm just old enough to kind of get that that's a joke and it's political and but I got into so much shit for that. I just didn't think about why anyone would have a problem with that until I got reamed out for it. And I'm like an 11-year-old. I don't know. And so that's when my first, the Quebec referendum is my first political memory, really,
Yeah.
my first real
Wow.
political memory. And but since then it's been a problem. And so it's what makes podcasts and streams like this really interesting is that things are going through my head as we talk, and I'm trying to process and put them all through the checks. Is this true? Is this fair? Is this libelous? Is this scandalous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, before I say something? And so by the time I'm done, it seems very laid back and very calm and just shooting the shit. But by the time I'm done, I look like Doc from Back to the Future, just like
Smoke pouring out of your head. Yeah, it's the hard part now too, right? Like we're going back to our original conversations about canceling people and guarding what you say, because you don't want to offend any group, right? Being a journalist is difficult that way because, now we're asked to serve a certain audience. We're not asked to write creatively. We're not, this by the independent work that you do for the several publications that you work for. You put up an article at TVO today, which is incredible. I encourage everybody to go and read it. If you haven't, Doug Ford's government is hands off unless they're not, which is fascinating, except when it's not. Governments have a duty to govern within the limits of democratic best practices. The Tories don't seem to be too concerned about that. It's a tremendous article. If you get a chance to go and write it or go and read it, it's on TVO's website. It's on David's Twitter feed as well. But it must be difficult for you because it's difficult for me in your discipline when you write. And I know it's difficult for Lochlin because you see, if your brain works a certain way, you see all kinds of content coming from one subject, right? But then you have to do something, and I don't know how you do it, but really disciplined journalists, smart cats, have the ability to meter their emotional response within what it is that they deliver. And you do become emotional. Yeah, it's mine too. It's all of ours, right?
You got to pick your pitches.
How do you do it?
Practical wisdom. I that seems flippant, but it's true. I mean, I wish we had. I was just talking about this yesterday, actually, on a stream. I wish we had more grace in the sense that sometimes people say things that are deeply hurtful that they shouldn't say, but if they were acting in good faith, then we should have the grace to forgive them and move on. But that's not what happens. You get branded with a scarlet letter in perpetuity. Some people are total shitheels and they are recurring offenders and they operate in bad faith. That's a different problem. Those folks are a different problem. They're trolls, they're abusers, they're a different thing. But a lot of good faith people say something dumb or say something without thinking or on the fly, and then that becomes their life. And that's a big problem because there's no forgiveness there. And go back to Hannah Arendt. She's somewhere over one of my shoulders. And, Hannah Arendt, writing in the post-war era, was saying that, we need promise and forgiveness. We need promise because it binds us together and allows us to have some stability in the world. But we also need forgiveness because we're human beings and we're fallible. And at some point, we're going to fail to fulfill our promises. And we need the grace to forgive. Mm-hmm. And we don't do promise and forgiveness. And that leads to a much more toxic and problematic world, right? And everyone's a little worse off for it. So I try to be very careful and apply kind of Aristotelian virtue ethics of knowing what to say, when to say, and how to say it. Because if you pick your pitches, you can get away with saying real things in real ways. But you got to really be careful. And I have a couple of heuristics, and one of them is, am I punching up or down? And if I'm punching up, then I'm a lot less worried than if I might be punching down. And if I'm punching down, I'm probably not going to say it. And if I get called out for missing it, I own it, I apologize, I think about it, and I move on with my life. And I find that if you operate in good faith, there is some hope that if you have a track record of it, you will be given that forgiveness and grace, but it's certainly not extended universally.
No, and it's a great point. We have so many different people that have different opinions, and we have spent the better part, and we talked about this in the podcast yesterday, David. We've spent the better part of like 3 years looking for people and things to dunk on, right? Like it's just we said that earlier, it's just a dunk fest. And we mentioned the emotional part and the damage that it does to you when you're negative, right? You and I have both talked about this. We talked about it earlier in the podcast, having to take a break from the negativity. And I go back to the philosophical tenet of what's bad for the hive being bad for the bee. I mentioned that a lot. And I've never experienced that in as much as I have over the past 3 years. And it comes from this emotional response that we all have, right? From the content that we put on, from the values that we hold dear. And then, being able to fight through the emotional response to have some sort of intellectual response where you can be of good character and whatever you put out in terms of content can be for the common good doesn't seem to get clicks anymore, right? It's not the rewarding process. It's not what we have on social media. The algorithm doesn't work that way. And I see it in analytics, and that's the anger, or that's the piece that I think a lot of people in this space, in your space, that are doing this work, you have to ask yourself that question at one point. Are you doing this for a lift and a response?
Yeah.
Or are you doing this because you're doing the right thing? Are you doing this are you putting that information out because you believe this is the best of yourself and the best interpretation of that? And can you which is something we have not done a good job of and something we've endeavored to do, to your point. And Brittlestar made me aware of it when he's like, don't hate the messenger, hate the message, right? Don't go after the people who are kettled by the messaging.
Yes.
Go after the people who are delivering that messaging and radicalizing and brainwashing those people on any side of the aisle. Go after the institution, not the human being, to your point. And, as much fun as it is to get that lift from punching down and maybe being right in terms of, it's amazing. And I've noticed the damage that it has done to me over the past 3 years. Truly done to me and my psyche and my ability to enjoy my life, or even be able to open up Twitter and to open it up and to compete in Twitter by going like this. Every time you do it at 9 o'clock at night, you're like, here we go. Right. It's that feeling. You got to ramp up to it. And that's the stuff that existentially I can't do anymore. And I wonder if we as a people are going to be at that point, if the algorithm is going to continue to reward.
We are getting there. We're getting there.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I'd like to think so. I don't know.
I'd like to add one more thing to the pile. No, it's not the frog thing. Okay. I think gratitude is severely lacking as well in not just this space, but in general. That actually taking the time to thank the people, even if it's something that they might not necessarily feel like they need to have gratitude for. Anyway,
we're not a very happy people. I'll tell you that. Although David is. And now that he's,
I am actually pretty happy. I was thinking about this recently. I'm like, yeah, I am. It's kind of like level. Everything's
good.
As long as he's got a big Turk.
It's very strange. It's funny is because I had years of anxiety and depression and all that stuff, and it's such a classic trope of, well, what happens if it goes away? Like, then you're just going to feel better. Now, like my current self would be like, well, dummy, you'll feel better. But myself then was so bound up in it. And I'm like, well, does it take your edge off? Are you worse at writing? Are you worse at, like, no, you're just better.
Good for you.
You just feel better. But things just leveled out. And now things are just, it's funny because at once the world is falling apart in so many small and medium and big ways, and I'm very anxious about that and worried about that and apprehended with that. But then day to day my life is just good and stable, and it's a very interesting dynamic because it's a bit like the "this is fine" meme.
Yeah, everything's fine.
But like day to day, I get up, I like my life, I love my partner, I love our dog who's chilling here beside me, I love my work. We're moving, we love our new house. It's like, damn,
life's pretty good.
Life's just good.
Yeah, but you have the ability to look outside, and know that the internal parts are the rewarding parts, right? The relationships.
Yeah, that was the big lesson.
Yeah,
that was the big lesson.
Was it the external stuff, not chasing?
It was. It's funny is I know you're deeply embedded in the Stoic tradition, but from even a long time ago would turn to Stoicism in tough times and read it to kind of reorient myself, and Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius in particular. And Stoicism is so fraught because there's a lot of hucksters who've picked it up and given it a bad name in some ways. But if you go to primary texts and there's kind of a bro culture around it, which sometimes isn't the healthiest. But there's also a deep tradition there that is incidentally deeply Buddhist as well, right? There's a lot of Buddhist elements to that are really productive. And if you go and sit with that and think about it and really engage with it, it is a solve in a lot of ways. And I think I moved away from it consciously in recent years because I haven't been in any sorts of crises where I need to go into it. But then I realized that I've actually come to it kind of obliquely in the turning away from it, which if you think about it is in itself very Stoic. Almost,
very
right?
much so. Yeah.
And so it just ended up working. Something sort of clicked, and then I, got myself right through that process, and it's been deeply rewarding. And it's funny because I don't even sit around thinking, oh, when's the other shoe going to drop, or when's it all going to fall apart? I'm just sort of there thinking, oh, I like getting up, hanging out, petting the dog, taking the dog for a walk, walking to the coffee shop, writing, coming home, hitting the gym, reading. It's just nice and level, and I'm in those moments. And it, like, if you're lucky enough to have everything align, and if you're smart enough to do the work and commit enough to do the work, there's a chance it really pays off. And it's been quite nice.
Good for you.
My issue with stoicism has been I met too many people that adapted it and then used it at, not you, Dean,
Thank you.
used it as a weapon or licensed to be an asshole.
Yes. Or to point out that they don't have to care, and I think that's the biggest problem.
That's nihilism, right? Like this is
totally,
and that's nihilism. And this is the battle of to say there's a big difference between stoicism and nihilism, and we've got to know that.
Well, and stoicism is funny because as someone who has had a problem with alcohol that I talk about regularly, stoicism was that extra thing, that gave me some kind of ability to have reasoned choice with my own life around and the things that happen around me. And it helped me separate myself from the actions of others.
Yeah.
And it also helped me separate my mind from the mob's mind, right? Like it helped me get away from going, okay, well, this is how society works. You need to be part of these groups. And you really don't. You don't have to be part of anybody's group. You have to have the ability to reason, right? And when you're emotional, you don't. And stoicism, there's a reason why people go, oh, that guy's very stoic. And it comes with this adaptation that everybody that follows stoicism has this otherworldly calm, or they're not interested in living life, or they're not fun, or they're not interested. And it's not the case. When you see someone who has really wrapped their heart around the idea that you're responsible to respond to everything in your life in your best interest, in the best way possible, and that you can separate your mind from the minds of others. And Epictetus once said that. He said, and a wonderful philosopher, broken leg, he was a slave. It's an imaginary story. It's truly fascinating. He's considered the slave or the peasant philosopher. And one of the things that he said that sticks with me today, and I say it all the time to people that I work with, it's, if someone passed by and gave you to somebody else, you'd be furious, but you give your mind to people on a regular basis. You allow them in your head. You allow their words to hurt you, and you internalize these things because of one reason only. You don't have the ability to respond properly. You don't know what the best interest of that response is for you. And repeat it over time. I don't know of any better text. I don't know of any better philosophy or life philosophy that gives you that ability to be able to kind of captain your life and understand that everybody around you is going through the same thing you're going through, but you don't have to go through it with them. You know what I mean? That you have that ability to remove yourself from it and truly just do life, like just do your life. And here's the other thing. I understand that failure is my greatest teacher now. I don't get jacked up by it. Other people's words don't mean anything to me unless I respect the person's words that are saying those things to me, right? So through the process of being able to understand what stoicism is, to your point, it's given me this ability to get away from my emotional self, react emotionally all the time, negatively all the time, to be able to sit back and say, what is going on in front of me, and how do I respond to this in the best way possible? And that is it for me. That is why I am what I am. And that led to, cognitive behavioral therapy. Donald J. Robertson, who's a great friend and mentor of mine. I'll send you the Stoic series that we did with him a little while ago. And I encourage everybody to look into any kind of mental practice, any kind of cognitive practice where you make these repeated decisions in the best interest of your life to respond well to failure, to respond well to success, and to embrace it all. Embrace it all is this beautiful experience because we're in the business of doing this life, right? We're not in the business of staying in their covers. We're not in the business of being scared. We're in the business of competing in the republic with people in the marketplace of ideas. And when you feel confident enough to do that as an individual, you realize that all the other stuff doesn't matter. What matters is those relationships that you have. What matters is the people that you love. And what matters is surrounding yourself with those things. And that becomes your karma. That becomes a happy life. And not many people understand that, David. And it's nice that you do.
It's 100%. And like shit just doesn't bother me anymore like it used to. And I've tried to help myself. So there's one thing to do the mental work. It's another, you can set up institutional setups to try to help you. So for instance, I spend a lot of time on Twitter. It's actually very important for my work, like it or not, both for sharing the stuff I write, but also for reading the work of others, which I think is the more important of the two for me. But I've limited what I see. Right, like Odysseus lashes himself to the masts while going past the sirens for a reason. And for instance, I don't see comments from people who don't follow me. I don't see comments from new accounts. I don't see comments from people with default avies. And it's made my Twitter experience a lot better. It's made it easier not to take things seriously or to get inundated with that. And it's a sort of like almost like a training wheels for not caring about stuff. And I'm for not caring about bad faith attacks or unreasonable attacks. Good ones make me think, bad ones wash over me, and it's made a big difference. And then, you know, when I go out in the day and you argue with people and you get criticized, and sometimes from people you care about and really respect, and that gets to you a little bit because you're a human being and you got to process that. But then I ground myself in the moment. I go play video games with my friend. I go play sports with my team. I hang out with Megan on the couch and we watch a show, and you know, I take the dog for a walk, and then I'm there, and I'm not over. You know, it's funny is walking the Sam, who's touring around behind me because she can't get in her little crate. You can kind of see her right there.
Yeah, there she is. She's so pretty.
She's a very good Sam.
She wants to go in the crate. You want to put her in the crate? She's got crate envy right now.
She's got, yeah, because this is her way of her way of chilling out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll open that door in a sec. But you know, I take her for a walk, and because she's leash reactive, I have to be very conscious of. You should always be conscious when you're walking a pad, but because she's reactive, I'm extra conscious. So my phone is in my pocket, and I don't touch it. I've got my hand on the leash, 2 hands on the leash, and I'm paying attention to Sam, and it's just me and Sam out walking around. That's such a simple thing, but it's also a deep expression of being there in the moment. I'm out walking the dog. I'm mindful of walking the dog. It's me and her hanging out, doing, you know, having some exercise, and me walking, you know, looking around to make sure that she's comfortable and not anxious, and she doesn't scare anyone else. And you're there in a moment, and everything else melts away. And you know, I think to myself, I need to bring the dog walking mentality to every little bit of my life, to be present in that moment and focused on that thing. And when you're in that moment, you're in a kind of peace, and it's a skill that I think that is really worth putting the time in to develop.
How do you separate? This is a question I'll ask you before we let you go. How do you separate? And this is the question that I get from a lot of people. How do you separate being mindful, right, from not caring about certain things? How do you separate? Because there's a difference. You know, when you're mindful and being in the moment, you need to be in the moment where you're on Twitter like you. It's very good for our business, right? Yeah. And you're like, I need to be mindful in that. But when we're mindful, we take things very seriously. Like you took that moment to be mindful with your dog in that moment to enjoy your life, to experience your life experience in a very, you know, holistic. It feeds your soul when you do those things. It doesn't feed your soul on Twitter, but you need to be mindful when you're on Twitter. So how do you explain that to somebody who's like, wait a second, you want to be all in, but now you're saying you can't give a shit about what other people are saying or doing? That's the separation of that emotional self, right, from that moment.
I would say that there's a slight distinction of importance, which is you do need to care the appropriate amount in the appropriate way. Again, this is a very kind of Aristotelian virtue ethics approach, is that it's not about not caring, it's about caring the right amount in the right way. So if someone I really respect has a critique of something I've said or done, then I'm going to try to sit with that and think about it. I'm going to care about it. I'm going to process it. If I think they've got a point, I'm going to change my behavior. And then I'm going to move on with my life and do better. That's a caring about it in the right way, in a constructive way, in an appropriate way, in the right amount. If some internet troll says, "You're a commie fuckbag, I hope you die in a fire," that I'm not going to care about, because there's no reason to care about. There's nothing to take away from. There's no there. I move on with my life. Yeah. And so it's about being attentive to what you should care about it, and to the amount you should care about it, and to adjust accordingly if there's something to adjust, because it's information about the world that can help you to become a better person. And the wisdom is knowing what to pay attention to and how much and what not to, and having the capacity to leave it behind when you need to leave it behind, so you can move on to the next thing. Because to your earlier point, if I get into a Twitter fight with someone and I get a little bit irritated, which does happen, and then I go hang out with my friends or go to hang out with Megan, I'm not served by bringing that frustration and that anger into
Mm.
that moment over there. In fact, it then, if I take that with me, then it ruins, this other moment that might be special or nice or so.
You're not present because you're taking it with you. So
And
that
you're,
point,
and you're
yeah.
unhappy, and
Yeah.
it ruins everything. So it's about dealing with a thing in the moment. If you need to deal with it, not dealing if you don't, and then moving on so you can go enjoy another part of your life, which you then will take something else from. And I find that I've gotten pretty good at that in general, right?
But that's
About
practice,
leaving
right?
that stuff behind. It is a 100% practice.
Yeah.
I think there's two components to it. One is the institutional setup component. So
Mhm.
if there are ways to limit the extent to which this stuff can get to you through strategies and tactics, do that. Like having Twitter filters, having control over who can talk to you, how they can talk to you, quitting accounts if they're truly deeply toxic and hurtful to you, right? If they're not a net positive, things like that. Having time where you don't touch your phone, whatever. There's structural ways, but then there's psychological ways of disciplining yourself over time and being gentle with yourself, because it's tough. It takes a long time.
Sure it does.
And forgiving yourself. And you'll never be perfect, accepting that, but then saying, I'm just going to leave this here. And when I move over here, I'm going to forget this, and I'm going to talk to my partner. I'm going to talk to my buddies. I'm going to go play a video game with them, and I'm going to focus on this thing that I'm doing. And in the act of focusing on this other thing, what you find is this other stuff that's over here intruding in your brain dissipates.
Mhm.
It just goes away because you only have so much focus. Now, if you're having intrusive thoughts and ruminations and things that you have a really deeply structural hard time, there might be something else going on there. I do very much support people talking to professionals and medicating when necessary. But for me, that wasn't what did it. I never did medication for different reasons. I did therapy for lots of reasons. But what eventually got me there was disciplining myself and learning how to check that, leave it, and move on, and focus on where I am in the moment. And that did a lot of good. But that does take time and practice. And that's what's worked for me. That may not work for everyone, but I can tell you it works for a lot of people. And I'm one of them.
It does. There's an intellectual quotient, and I'll be nice about it. Like, you have to understand what it means and how to be able to discipline yourself, right? Like, there's a difference between, what you can download and how you can actually download that and institute those, checks and balances, whether it comes to massaging, the inputs in your life and the outputs in your life, knowing that you're going to have to get rid of certain friends who aren't good for you. It's that control aspect. The dichotomy of control in Stoicism is the dichotomy of control in everybody's life. What do you control and what do you not? And it's amazing how angry we've all allowed ourselves to get over the words that we don't control from other people that they put out there that we felt like we wanted to control. And when you realize that one thing, right, is that I cannot control what that person said to me, what that person did to me. I can only control my response to that person. And when you realize that response doesn't have to come in the form of "go fuck yourself, you dickbag," it can come in the form of a block. It can come in the form of a mute. It can come in the form of you just deciding. It literally can. When you repeat that behavior enough, it can come in the form of deciding that you're not going to be affected by it. You're not going to allow Johnny 699 to tell you that you're a pedophile and allow that to bother you throughout your entire day, because you don't control it. You don't. And I see so many people, David, waste their time chasing things they don't control. And I was that guy. To your point, 5 years ago, if someone did what they did to me yesterday, where they rode their bike up next to me on Bay Street, had a smoke hanging out of their mouth, spit on my window, told me to get out of their lane, I laughed. 5 years ago, I would have chased the guy down and ruined my entire day and maybe gotten charged.
Yeah.
Like, one of those like crazy responses that I would not be in control of because it was an emotional response. Today, I looked at that gentleman, and in my mind, through a series of, years and years and years of practice, I said to myself, that guy has no other options in life.
Yeah.
Poor fella. And I went about my day, and it didn't bother me for more than 4 seconds because it had nothing to do with me. That was him. But we allow people that space in our lives, and that is something I'm unwilling to do. And so that practice over 7 years, to your point, someone who is medicated, someone who is diagnosed with PTSD and extreme anxiety and first episode depression, like the bad stuff, didn't know I had it. And I'll tell you what fixed me. It wasn't medication. It was the work. It was the work involved of deciding I need to be a better person. Historically, where do I find examples of people who were able to be that better person? And what do I have to do? What are those repeated steps? What are those steps in my life I have to bring in, which is surround myself with people I want to be like, which is why I love having you on the show. I want to be like David MOSCROP. I want to be
Who
like
doesn't?
nobody I know doesn't want to do. Everybody wants to be David MOSCROP.
I mean, look at this here.
But we surround ourselves with people who teach us about grace, wisdom, kindness, all those things that we go, man, that guy, you see that guy, I want to be like that guy. He seems so peaceful and he deals with life in such a proper way and he seems successful. Guess what that guy did? The same thing we did. That work, right? There's no magic bullet. There's no the switch we flip on. And when I see people that don't want to do the work of being that better person, don't want to do the work of reading, opening themselves up to the idea that other people had ideas of how to be better, happier people before we decided to fuck it up with the internet.
I keep Marcus Aurelius close. I can actually.
Meditations? What do you got?
I've got a very nice edition of the meditations that I keep. It's the folio edition that I keep very close. And like once every couple of years, I go and read it.
The whole thing?
It's got drawings.
Oh, it's got illustration. The Hayes edition, the Hayes translation is one of the best. If you get the Hayes translation of meditations, it's really good. It breaks down what you have to do. And you know the amazing part of that book? The first like 2 chapters is him thanking people for making him who he was.
Yeah, his tutors, yeah.
Right?
I'm more on the medication path still, and I'm a big fan of alcohol solving all my problems.
Yeah,
and, yeah, but you guys look great.
Thank you.
You guys look like you're doing fantastic.
We are. We're happy people. David MOSCROP. His Substack, I would encourage everybody to subscribe to it. He is one of those culture leaders that just does what he does, and by a product of it, he's just one of those cats. Yeah, he's dude. Absolutely love having you on the show. Too Dumb for Democracy is the name of the book. I believe it's in his third printing.
Yeah, 3 or 4, something like that. It's still going strong.
That's awesome. It's one of the best books. It's again historical. If you like history and if you like seeing people repeat mistakes. And if you want someone to usher you through what democracy should be, David MOSCROP is your guy. He's got a couple of great articles up at TVO right now. We didn't get a chance to take out Doug Ford's knees today. Sorry,
we'll do it next time.
Do another time. Yeah, will you come back? Yeah,
anytime.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
Good to see you, David.
Thanks so much.
David MOSCROP, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. David MOSCROP. One of my favorite people. You know what I like about him? Not only is he smart, he delivers a smart, but he doesn't make you feel like an idiot when he talks to you.
Doesn't punch down.
No.
Doesn't spend his day dunking on people. He's
I've been telling
just trying
you
to figure out the craziness. Don't. You just got to just blow 35 minutes of stoicism out your ass. Don't do that.
I looked at your face when he brought it up, and I'm like, yes.
I let it go.
Dude, you want to be as successful as us? You should get into stoicism.
I'm very successful. I have everything that I need.
You do.
Right here, right?
Yeah. Yes. Under that Ardent Roof Systems hat, by the way. Excellent product placement. Ardent Roof Systems, proud partner of the Dean Blundell Show with Lochlin Cross out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The #1 Owens Corning guaranteed platinum partner in all of North America.
We got one of the Owens Corning guys on the show, actually. Wow. Very soon. We will have that person on very soon. So Ardent Roof Systems brings you the Locker Room Retro Replay of the day. This one kind of speaks for itself. I do want to remind people that the early bird pricing is still in effect for the Ardent Roof Systems Charity Golf Tournament that helps out the Stollery Child Life Program. He's raised $65,000. We just got the okay from, in 4 years, 4 tournaments, wow. $65,000, which has gone a long way to do some very cool things at the hospital, which we are going to, in May, get a chance to go down and film and give you a look at where your money, if you sign up for the tournament, is going. Again, early bird pricing in April. It'll end on May 1st. Go check out the webpage. Easy to find the link to sign up for the golf tournament. It is ardentroofsystems.com.
Yeah.
The Lock Retro Replay. I need to be busy, and I don't think that that's going to stop when I'm 65.
Plus, could you imagine you and your wife hanging out all day, every day?
Yes, Grant.
Oh, is she listening right now? Is that the look you're giving me?
I can totally see that. The more time I get to spend with my wife, the better. All it'll do is strengthen our relationship.
Hi, Deb. You're obviously listening.
Why do you do that to me?
What?
You have no idea how hard you telegraphed that whole thing. Right. You're home.
right.
You're like kind of retired right now, 53, looking like $1 million. Gonna get your yoga
54.
teaching certificate, 54. Never look better. You got a great shitter on you too. Good little old man ass on you.
Yeah.
And now you're home with the wife. You have been for like a month and a half. How are things? I don't want to get into a long dissertation.
It's been
but
going well, but there have been moments where she has said to me,
Get
maybe
out.
you should go upstairs. Or, yeah, honey,
I
you
find that-
really should go out with Buck.
Don't you have a hockey game to go to tonight?
You really,
Dude, she's
really,
gonna-
really, really should go
gonna
out with
buy-
Buck.
She's gonna buy you
He's your friend.
every. She's gonna buy you tickets to every Oiler playoff game.
I don't
And
go to the
just-
Oilers games.
I know you
I
don't.
don't
because
have
you don't
money.
like paying for them, but
Well, no. No, you have no idea.
She's gonna say, "Honey, look,
It's insane how much.
How much are playoff tickets?"
I wouldn't even look at it. Like, I would need a second mortgage.
I
The
think we're
amount of
looking at,
money
like,
people spend on
$4,000.
hockey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
4 or 5
yeah.
grand here.
Listen, I'm going to let you go because
Yeah.
if I don't, I'm going to pee my pants.
Me
But,
too.
yes.
All right.
We'll see you in a bit.
All right,
Thank you for
Lachlan's
today.
got to go pee. Great to see
Yes.
you. Lachlan Cross, ladies and gentlemen. At Lachlan Cross on Twitter, one of the greatest people you'll ever meet. Seriously. There you go. That's it for the podcast. Have a wonderful day. R.I.P. OJ, I guess. I don't know. I don't care that he's dead. I know everybody's like, oh, you're like, no. I look at death differently, especially when it's a psycho that murdered a couple people. Bon voyage, fuckface. Thanks to everybody for being part of the show, including and not limited to our friends at CanTorque. They make rugged, hardworking torque wrenches for heavy industry around the world, not just in Canada. They manufacture in Canada, but they also manufacture for nuclear, railroad, mining, boring tunnels, anything that requires a bolting solution you can't find because the bolts are too big or they're in there too hard or no one can do it because the torque wrench doesn't have enough PSI. Well, they make the best in the world. And every solution under one roof, from tool rentals, calibration, and much, much more. Fabrication, every product you can check out at their new website, cantorque.com. Also, you can check out all their services and brand new podcast called Talkin' Torque with Colin Livingston. He's the principal, and he's been at this for 20 years. He's either in Dubai or China, or he's in the oil fields in Alberta, or he's on an oil rig somewhere in the middle of the ocean, providing torque wrench solutions for people who need them in a big, bad way, and he's the best in the world at it. So go to cantorque.com for more details. Proudly manufactured in Canada by Canadians for heavy industry around the world. Rugged, hard-working torque wrenches, Canada's leading industrial tool experts, the best in sales, service, calibration, maintenance, and custom fabrication of industrial torque tools. Go to cantorque.com for more information. Also brought to you by our friends at Muse Massage Spa and their brand new podcast called Muse on the Mic. The latest one is all about whacking it. Yeah, just let's put it right out there. There's no need in mincing words. And these girls are advocates for the sex work industry. They own Muse Massage Spa. They have a podcast which encourages all kinds of education in the sexology arena, in the body work arena, in the sex work arena. And they know more about sex work than anybody else because they've been there, and now they're entrepreneurs who like to help women make money in this area and in this industry. And there's nothing more safe or therapeutic than going to Muse Massage Spa for that. $50. Just ask for the Dean deal. Make sure you get them on DM. And not just done there. Emily and Riley have a great podcast called Muse on the Mic. And you can get that podcast at Patreon. You can subscribe to it. That's the juicy version. You know what I mean? Because it's not censored. That's why it's on Patreon. Highly suggest you go and subscribe to that. You can also get the YouTube version, Muse on the Mic, and go to Muse Massage Spa for more details. And we're brought to you by our friends at Fact Check as well. FactCheck.io is robust software that will kill disinformation before it starts or even after it starts. Could be a picture, could be a video, could be a news story, anything with a URL. Anything that someone tells you is something and you want to question the veracity of that, you want to verify it, Fact Check does it all for you. They're now accepting beta applicants to test their software. Go to factcheck.io to sign up, factchek.io. If you would like some agency over what you read, see, feel, hear, and touch, watch, doesn't matter what it is. A group of scientists, journalists have gotten together and they said, bleep that. Let's create something that not only tracks, but gives people a full report. They can make the decision themselves based on the best available information, not just a headline. That's what they do. Go to factcheck.io today to sign up for the beta test, factchek.io. Saw the beta again yesterday. It's crazy. Have a great day. Appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have a young man on the program named Frank Graves. Frank Graves is the president of Ecos Research. He's got some research Canadians are going to be interested in reading. So join us then. That is tomorrow on this very program. Rate, subscribe, YouTube, anywhere you get your fine podcasts as well. Dean Blundell Show. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.